Look at these 3 words written larger than the rest, with a special pride never written before or since. Tall words proudly saying, "We the people."
Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Remedial Civics with the Lex Rex Institute, the legal show where we talk about Star Wars Andor for some reason.
Yeah.
Are we doing that again this week?
We're doing that again. We said we'd do it last time.
Did
realized
we?
That, yeah, I think we did. Realized that it's not quite as relevant, but like we're still going to do it.
Okay.
We'll point out how it's just different from American, which I think was on purpose for the trial, actually.
Yeah, well, it's in a galaxy far, far away, so...
That would be why.
Yeah, that's
why.
I guess, starting with Star Wars is really starting with the basics as far as Remedial Civics is concerned. Liberty, tyranny, so
Yeah.
I guess it works.
Yeah, okay. You actually made that work. Okay. So let's bring up that clip, and then we'll react to it.
I didn't know they had normal fans.
Charges.
Nope.
Loitering at the scene of a crime, walking an unleashed massive animal fouling.
Animal fouling, what is that?
4 months.
Fouling an animal.
Next.
Pause it. So I know that I'm not an expert in anything really, but this more screams French Revolution to me. Like it reminds me of the end of Tale of Two Cities when they're in front of a trial. And, all that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, and it lines up with obviously you see these trials, they don't have any right to counsel here.
Right.
So they pretty much just have charges read against them and then are summarily convicted. It's like the Shakespeare quote, "First thing we'll do is kill all the lawyers."
Yeah.
Palpatine did that too, because I guess the Jedi were kind of their lawyers prior to the Empire.
I think that the Jedi were the lawyers. They
No.
certainly
The Guardians of Peace and Justice in the Old Republic.
Okay. Well, I guess if you put it that way, sure.
And they judge disputes, right? I mean, that was kind of like they sent them to go negotiate with the Trade Federation Viceroy, so that they were speaking on behalf of the Republic, and so they could form a deal with the Trade Federation Viceroy.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they're very good lawyers.
No.
But I think I think those are I think that is their equivalent of a lawyer in Star Wars universe. So.
Okay.
I wish we got lightsabers.
Here. Name? Hey, Keith Gargo.
Charges.
Civil disruption, anti-imperial speech, fleeing the scene of anti-imperial activity, attempted damage to imperial property.
I'm sorry, there's something wrong.
I would.
Yeah.
Civil disruption.
Yeah.
Anti-imperial speech. Attempting to flee the scene of anti-imperial sentiment, I think they said. Activity? Okay, was that all the charges?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that you can just go down the list of the Bill of Rights there.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I'm starting to suspect they did in order to find out how to make a government look bad.
I think you're probably right.
I think it's a good argument for it. Anyway.
That's always kind of been a Star Wars thing. It's very strongly inspired by America in the ways that the Empire is tyrannical. Obviously they kind of copy some Nazi symbolism, some French Revolutionary symbolism, particularly French Empire, under Napoleon, their symbolism. But in terms of what the Empire does that's bad, apart from the whole blowing up planets thing, most of it is stuff that Americans would immediately recognize as stuff that our government's prohibited from doing.
Yeah.
The way they'll just stop people and question them, abuses of civil liberties, that sort of thing. So I think that is what you're seeing here.
So none of that can happen in America.
Yeah, that's not really something that would have a direct corollary.
Well, good.
In America,
that's encouraging.
That's
nothing else.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there like a question related to any of this?
No, let's keep going.
Okay.
Charges.
Civil disruption.
Okay, so first charge, civil disruption. I don't know what the heck that's supposed to be. Was that like violating a noise ordinance?
Yeah, it'd be a bit like that.
Okay.
Or, disrupting maybe police officers walking around and talking to people.
Yeah, it's probably exercising your right to peaceably assemble, honestly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you were right a minute ago when you said that these things are kind of just going through the gambit of exercising
the
Bill of things in the Bill of Rights. So
let's do the next one.
Anti-imperial speech.
Okay.
That's free speech.
Free speech.
Yeah, and obviously seditious speech. We have free speech protected in our Constitution, not so that we can say things to criticize one another predominantly, but so we can say things that are critical of the government.
We've had sedition laws in the past. I think
the Alien and Sedition Act passed by Thomas Jefferson.
Well, I was thinking of that one. I think we had something similar during World War I as well.
Yeah. But sedition is separate from just speech that's critical of the government.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be seditious, you have to actually be actively undermining what the government's doing. And there usually has to be an overt act in furtherance of that. It's not just something that's speech.
Okay, so good.
Now, the Alien Sedition Act is fairly broad, as originally written. It's never really been enforced. But yeah, obviously, this is something that's supposed to be very incompatible with our Bill of Rights.
Right.
Again, like we said earlier, kind of what Star Wars does.
Yeah.
Fleeing the scene of anti-imperial activity.
Yeah, that's a guilt by association thing.
Yes.
So, everybody else is guilty of anti-imperial activity. They don't have any evidence on that for you, but you fled the scene, so that's... then you see laws like this a lot. Patriot Act created a lot of laws like this.
I was thinking RICO.
You actually get federal law, particularly racketeering, wire fraud, those kinds of laws, where basically the law itself is an evidentiary presumption of guilt for a different thing. And what I mean by that is obviously fleeing the scene of anti-imperial sentiment isn't what the empire cares about here.
Right.
They care about the anti-imperial sentiment.
Right.
So they're using the fact that you did that basically as evidence that you were somebody expressing anti-imperial sentiment, but they make the thing itself a crime.
Yeah.
I think laws like that are very incompatible with the American system of government. We fight against laws like that, but we do have them. There's the kind of thing Thomas Jefferson complains about, the Declaration of Independence, actually.
Yeah.
So, again, there's echoes through American history.
Yeah.
Attempted damage to imperial property.
I'm sorry, there's something wrong.
I would.
Attempted damage to imperial property. So in Anglo-American law, you have attempt, and you can kind of slap that onto any other intentional crime.
Sure.
Damaging property is never a crime under the common law.
Really?
No, that would be something like vandalism.
Oh, I see.
So you could have attempted vandalism, but they don't have any evidence for him.
No.
For vandalism. All they have is that droid held him there and he tried to make the droid stop holding him there. Right? So that's where he supposedly committed attempted damage to imperial property, but that was clearly not vandalism because he was defending his life and limb when he did that. So, that's why I think they've created sort of a new crime there. We'll do that too, where we'll take a crime where the actual actus reus for that crime, the thing that you have to do, is something that's fairly bad, something you want to punish. But then we'll change whatever the mens rea for it is, the intent requirement there, and then pair those to kind of absurd effect. Like strict liability crimes are one thing where we tend to do that. Where like some of the insider trading laws run afoul of that. Where if you trade, I think it's more than 10% of the stock of a company, and it goes up by a certain amount within a certain span of time, that is definitionally insider trading, whether or not you actually intended to.
Yeah, I think it might be 5, but I've heard of that law.
It's something like that. I had to learn it for the bar, but I don't remember the numbers anymore because I'm bad with numbers.
Sure.
But I think it's kind of mirroring that sort of a law.
That makes sense.
I'm sorry, there's something wrong.
I wouldn't. You've got enough trouble without a resisting judgment charge.
Oof.
I'm just a tourist.
Oh, apologies all round then.
Okay, so they definitely don't have lawyers, considering resisting judgment is a charge. Although it seemed like he hadn't yet been adjudged guilty of those things. They were just reading charges.
Yes.
So maybe resisting judgment is like something that they charge you with if you try to prevent them from giving you a judgment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That sounds like maybe disruption of the court.
Yeah.
Kind of the implication.
Contempt of court.
Contempt of court, that's right.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So clearly do not have lawyers here. After that, he volunteers that he was just a tourist. I recommend if you're ever in a trial like this, you probably shouldn't just volunteer evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or any information.
Right, because they're probably just going to add more charges when you do that.
Right.
I don't know that you'll ever find yourself in a trial like this. And if you give Lex Rex contributions, which, by the way, we have full matching right now for any contributions. Any contribution made will be matched in full by an anonymous donor. So if you make those contributions, then we won't have trials like that at any point in the future, because that's part of what we fight against.
At least not that we would not fight. That came out weird.
Yeah, we still have lawyers here.
Yeah, we still have lawyers.
So
All right, let's finish
even if we don't have lightsabers.
Yet.
I'm just a tourist.
Oh, apologies all round then. This used to be a 6-month sentence. 6 years.
6 years? No, wait! But
Change of guidelines.
Change of guidelines. Yeah, so that actually is how real judges in the real world will pass sentence. They get sentencing guidelines that are given to them oftentimes not even by the legislature, just by executive agencies.
Okay.
So Department of Justice might give sentencing guidelines, and that's how they determine sentences on a lot of this stuff. Now, there's a very subtle scene earlier in this episode of Andor in the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, where they're talking about all the new laws they're going to pass, and they're actually clever about it because they say some of these things the Emperor's passing through essentially executive order. Some of these things have to be ratified by the Senate. They say with the resentencing directive that's something the Emperor is using as emergency authority to implement sua sponte. They don't use sua sponte means on his own, so to do of his own authority.
Right.
So that's actually consistent with it being sentencing guidelines here. They probably consulted with an attorney to write this.
That's clever.
So
now, for sentencing guidelines, is the judge required to rule within that area, or is that literally just a guideline?
If they're from an administrative agency, a judge is not required to rule within those confines.
But statutorily?
Statutorily, if the statute says that you have to, sentences between this and this, a judge has to use those sentences. But guidelines say, like, if this kind of thing's going on, or it's worse in these circumstances, less bad in these circumstances, that's the kind of thing sentencing guidelines pertain to. And judges do have discretion on that.
Well, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So my bet is, though, that this judge seemed to regret having to give Cassian 6 years for...
Which implies that she can't.
Which implies that even if she can, there'll probably be some unwanted attention
that's fair.
She's putting on herself if she does that, which is one of the real threats of tyranny like this, is that if you don't comply, you're putting yourself in the crosshairs.
Yeah, well, that's actually, so that reminds me of the French Revolution again, about how the Reign of Terror started ramping up because of the new guidelines scared the judges. And also, I can think of a trial, I think it might have been Nuremberg in the 1500s, a witch trial where there was one guy who wouldn't do all the severest punishments. And they thought, oh, he must be a witch. And so then they put him on trial. And after that, no judge was willing to do minimum crimes for witchcraft.
Well, and you even saw that in the recent Supreme Court confirmation for Justice Jackson. She had sentenced some, I think, sexual predators, and her sentences were actually within the sentencing guidelines. But they were below the average for other judges passing similar sentences. And Congress gave her a really hard time over that, saying basically you're soft on criminals. We really don't want that kind of thing in our system. That's not the kind of thing you want to give a judge a hard time for. Because sentences are always going to be based on circumstances, and you don't want judges to feel external political pressure to sentence people either more or less harshly.
Yeah, well, think of it, the shoe being on the other foot. If you're the one being sentenced, whether or not you've done the crime, don't you want the sentencing to be relevant to your situation, not just from some blue book?
Yeah.
Like, that's horrifying if you put yourself in the shoes.
Oh, yeah, terrible.
Shoes on the other foot.
No, I think that was, neither side in our political spectrum is at their best during these Supreme Court confirmations.
Political theater.
And it's, it pales in comparison to what happened to Justice Kavanaugh. But I thought that was totally inappropriate during her confirmation.
Let's see if there's any more of the clip, and then we'll...
I didn't do anything. Hey!
Take it up with the Emperor.
Wait! I'm just a tourist!
Next.
Wait!
That's it.
Take it up with the Emperor.
take it
Good
up.
luck doing that from prison. And that's maybe next week, if we keep doing Star Wars for this, we can look at that Senate scene where we see just how well taking it up with the Emperor goes for Mon Mothma. Spoiler alert, this whole episode was spoilers. So.
Well, I'm glad that we retroactively warned people. But anyways, I think that's all we have time for.
Yeah, all right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Again, we are doing matching through the end of November. We're calling it our Be Thankful for the Constitution matching program. So do contribute. Now is the time, if you've been thinking about it on the fence, now is the time to contribute to the Lex Rex Institute. Thank you so much for watching Remedial Civics. We'll get you up to speed in no time.
Have a good day.